Hey y'all, Michelle Raza here with the Finding Yourself Book Club. And today I'm very excited to announce that we're moving forward with Lindsay Gibson's second book, so Recovering from Emotionally Immature Parents. You can see I have a lot of tabs here highlighting all of the exercises because that's really what we're going to focus on when we cover this book. Please do like and subscribe. It really does help us little YouTubers here. It shows your support and helps YouTube know that our videos are valuable as we work hard to make these for you. Please also do check out our website. We're at www.findingyourself.SATX. There you can fill out a free life balance questionnaire and send it to us. You can also just fill out a contact form, email, call us, text us, message through the website, whatever. And it is me that responds. It's not a chat bot or an employee or anything like that. It's me. So look forward to talking with you. And if the only time that I interact with you is here in these YouTube videos, that's fine too. So thanks for hanging out with me today. Okay, so before we dive in, let's assume that you don't know anything about emotionally immature parents and you're like, what is this? Why should I be interested? What's going on here? So Lindsay's other work, Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents, we've covered in all of the previous videos. I started out in December of last year, I think it was, just reading. Eventually, Lindsay actually emailed me, or I think at some point I emailed her, she called me, so we had a few back and forths, and then she emailed. And so just trying to be respectful of her copyrights, I do recommend that you go pick up both of her works. They're excellent. They have a lot of good resources there that, try as one might, you can't really cover in a 15-minute video. And so as of chapter 6 of her last book, I started summarizing to try and more respect her copyright, because she has been so nice and so supportive. She loves you guys too. I told her about this little YouTube channel and she was super supportive of it. So maybe one day we'll get her to come on the show. That would be so exciting. But what we're going to cover here is pretty much the exercises of how to protect yourself against emotionally immature people. And there's 4 different types. So forgive me, let me grab my other book because it has the summary on there. Give me 1 second. Okay, so Lindsay talks about emotionally immature parents, but then in this second book, she really broadens it out to be emotionally immature people. And so it could be your parents, those who raised you, could also be your siblings, co-workers, your romantic relationship. It doesn't, I've had people ask, it doesn't apply to children because they are maturing. And so hopefully as they go through the phases of maturation in childhood, they'll grow out of being incredibly selfish and all of these things. But there's 4 basic types of emotionally immature people. The first one is the emotional one, where they themselves are so unstable and driven by their emotions that they instill the feelings of instability and anxiety in everyone around them. There's a common theme through all 4 of these, which is that the person is incredibly selfish and cannot, for the life of them, put their own needs to the side. They're always the center of attention. They dominate the conversations, and the whole family has to revolve around them. There's the driven parent who stays busy trying to perfect everything and everyone, and so they might be, shuttling their kids from practice to practice to practice, but never really stopping and asking their kids if that's even the hobby or extracurricular activity they want to be pursuing. And so the child of a driven parent ends up ironically not having much motivation at all, because their parents tend to kind of be helicopter parents. And if they tell them about any aspirations, then they'll be on top of them trying to get them to complete it. And it's kind of counterproductive for the child's own motivation. The passive parent avoids dealing with anything upsetting. So they're often the friendliest of all the parents, and the kids love them, but they know that they can't really rely on them for anything important. And dangerously, the passive parent will often partner with one of the other 3 types and can sometimes turn a blind eye to abuse. And then the rejecting parent is withdrawn, dismissive, and derogatory, and it makes you wonder why they even had children at all in the first place. So those are the 4 different types of emotionally immature people. The children of emotionally immature people tend to fall in one of 2 categories. One is an internalizer. So what Lindsay says, and I tend to agree, is if you're reading these books or watching these videos, you're an internalizer. You want to analyze, you want to fix the problem, You don't necessarily just knee-jerk react to everything. And then there's externalizers who tend to blame the outside world for their problems. They don't really look within. And so the immature parents, the 4 different types of immature parents here, are all externalizers. So give me a second just to figure out what I'm going to use the next 5 minutes for, because I like to keep these videos 10 minutes, around 10 minutes, and then we'll dive right in. Okay, so I think the best way to go about this is we're going to go over the introduction today, and then in the next video we'll cover some of the exercises. So they may be more of like mini clips where we just talk and I'll read the exercises to you and then kind of pause to try and get you to focus on, the meat and potatoes of how to get over these problems. Again, I do highly recommend you pick up this work. The context around it, if you haven't watched the other videos, will really help you in your journey here. So introduction. One day, listening to a client talk about her dad, I realized that her father wasn't just inappropriate and abusive. He was pathologically immature. Her father had the impetuosity and egocentrism as a very young child, with no thought for his impact on her. At an emotional level, he was like a giant toddler, at best a 14-year-old. I thought of how many psychotherapy clients I'd had whose childhoods were overshadowed by this kind of parental unpredictability and emotional overreactivity. They grew up as captives of emotionally immature parents, psychological infants armed with a rigid authority and a powerful adult body. That day, I saw these parents differently, stripped of all their false authority and revealed for the bullies they were. Other clients had emotionally immature parents who were better behaved, but were so aloof, even outright rejecting, that their children grew up feeling emotionally lonely and connection deprived. Although these parents often looked competent and dependable on the outside, they were so self-preoccupied and limited in empathy that they couldn't engage with their children. Still, other clients' parents were pleasant enough, but betrayed the child by absenting themselves whenever the child had a real problem or needed protection. Whatever their differences in individual behaviors, my clients' emotionally immature parents were the same under the skin. All lacked in empathy, all were self-involved, and all could not sustain a satisfying emotional connection with their children. Overall, many of my clients grew up in a family atmosphere characterized by conflict, mockery, and a lack of emotional intimacy. Paradoxically, many EI parents can behave like real adults in other ways, functioning well at work or in their social group. From the outside, it was hard to believe they could cause such misery at home for their children. As children, my clients were deeply confused by their parents' contradictory personalities. The only thing that made sense was to blame themselves. Those who felt mistreated or overlooked as children figured it was their fault for not being lovable or interesting enough. These clients saw their emotional needs as illegitimate, feeling guilty for being angry at their parents, and minimized or made excuses for their parents' behavior. Sure, they hit me, but so did a lot of parents in those days. The problem with emotionally immature parents. A childhood spent with EI parents can lead to long-lasting feelings of emotional loneliness, as well as ambivalence about relationships in general. Emotional loneliness is the result of feeling unseen and unresponded to, no matter how hard you try to communicate and connect. In adulthood, these children were often attracted to unsatisfying, disappointing partners and friends who seemed very familiar in their self-involvement and refusal to connect at a deeper emotional level. When I teach clients about EI parents, many recognize their own histories. It's like a light bulb going on. It explains a parent whose love felt self-centered and who rejected their child's attempt at deeper emotional connection. Once they understand their parents' emotional immaturity, pivotal moments in childhood make sense to them at last. Seeing their parents' limitations more objectively, they no longer have to be prisoners of their parents' immaturity. It's not just actual abuse that's harmful. The whole parenting approach of these parents is emotionally unhealthy, creating a climate of anxiety and untrustworthiness between parent and child. They treat children in such superficial, coercive, and judgmental ways that they undermine their children's ability to trust their own thoughts and feelings, thereby restricting the development of their children's intuition, self-guidance, efficacy, and autonomy. As a child of an EI parent, you may have learned to shut yourself down in order not to upset your parents' emotional apple cart. This is because your spontaneity might easily offend a thin-skinned EI parent. The intense reactivity of EI parents trains their children to be inhibited, passive, and acquiescent instead of nurturing their individuality and trust in others. In order to get along with these parents, it's easier in the short run to tune out who you really are and what you really want. But in the long run, you end up burdened by obligation, guilt, shame, and feeling trapped in your family role. The good news is that once you understand these parents and their effects, your life will be yours again. The purpose of this book: understanding how parental emotional immaturity has affected you is what this book is all about. Until you grasp your parents' psychological limitations, you may blame yourself wrongly or keep hoping for changes they won't make. This book will help you see what you've been up against while understanding your parent in the deepest possible way. You are going to learn to name and explain EI characteristics and behaviors that have never been popularly defined. My aim in writing this book is to give you a language for everything that goes on in EI relationships, both what happens between you and them and what happens inside yourself as you try to cope with them. Once you can name it, you can deal with it. The impact of emotionally immature persons, EIPs, doesn't have to rule your life. You can figure out their effect on you and neutralize it. Throughout the book, you'll also find writing exercise to strengthen your self-awareness and gain insight into your experiences with EI parents and other EIPs. I hope you find these interactive exercises both enlightening and fun. So I know we're over on time, but I'm just going to finish up the intro. The timeliness of understanding emotional immaturity. This topic of emotional immaturity has never been more important. EI behavior is widespread these days, and EIPs cause enormous suffering in all walks of life. Because EIPs insist on dominating and being the center of importance, they don't leave room or resources for others to be fully themselves. Their me-first entitlement and self-justifications negate the rights of other people, giving them free rein for abuse, harassment, prejudice, exploitation, and corruption of all types. Unfortunately, the lack of self-questioning in EI leaders can make them seem strong and confident, enticing followers to support agendas not in their best interest and almost solely for the benefit of the leader. Our vulnerability to self-centered authority starts in childhood, when EI parents teach us that our thoughts are not as worthwhile as their thoughts, and that we should accept whatever our parents tell us. It's easy to see how EI parenting could turn out children who later fall prey to extremism, exploitation, or even cults. Learning about emotional immaturity will help you understand and deal with all manner of EI behavior, regardless of its source. The EIP in your life might be a parent, significant other, child, sibling, employer, customer, or anyone else. The interpersonal dynamics will be the same, whether inside the family or outside. All the methods that work with EI parents will work with other EIPs as well. Overview of topics. The first half of this book, Part 1, will focus on what you've been up against, describing what it's like to grow up with EI parents or to be in a relationship with any EIP and what you can do about it. In Chapter 1, we'll explore what it's like having a relationship with your EI parent. You'll learn about their hallmark emotionally immature relationship system, EIRS, and how they seek to make you responsible for their self-esteem and emotional stability. You'll also find out possible reasons why they turned out as they did. Chapter 2 describes EI personality characteristics in detail. You'll also learn to spot EI emotional coercions and emotional takeovers, and how EIPs use self-doubt, fear, shame, and guilt in you in order to maintain their central role in the relationship. In Chapter 3, we'll explore what it's been like for you to try to have an emotionally satisfying relationship with your EI parent. We'll look at different types of EI parents and why they pull back from closeness. You'll learn how to see your EI parents more objectively, mourn what you didn't get, and move towards a more compassionate and loyal relationship with yourself as well as others. Chapter 4 shows you how to avoid emotional takeovers by EIPs by questioning their reality distortions and emotional emergencies. You'll learn how to set appropriate boundaries as well as when and how to respond to their demands for help. You'll see how their interpersonal pressure can disconnect you from yourself, making you take responsibility for their happiness in spite of knowing better. In Chapter 5, you'll learn exactly what to say and do as the most effective response to classic EI behaviors. You'll learn how to sidestep their pressure, lead the interaction, and stop them from taking over. Chapter 6 shows the countless little ways that EI parents and other EIPs undermine your self-confidence and trust in your intuitions. EI parents and EIPs are hostile toward your inner life by mocking and invalidating your perceptions, thoughts, and feelings. In this chapter, you will learn how to be immune to this shaming by staying loyal to your inner experience. In the second half, part 2 of the book, we will shift from understanding and dealing with EIPs to strengthening your individuality in spite of them. As you focus more on your own growth, you'll be reversing the effects of growing up with EI parents. In Chapter 7, you'll see why valuing your inner world is crucial to reestablishing a solid relationship with yourself. With new loyalty to your inner self, you'll trust yourself and welcome your feelings as invaluable information about what needs your attention. Chapter 8 shows you how to renounce EI indoctrinated thinking to make room for your own mind. You'll learn to undo the self-doubt caused by critical EI parents who dismissed any viewpoints different than theirs. As you clear your mind of mental clutter from old EI influences, you'll have fewer obsessive worries and less self-criticism. In Chapter 9, you'll update and broaden your self-concept. It's unlikely that EI parents would have helped you develop an accurate, confident self-image. Instead, they're more likely to have taught you to be submissive, leading you to see other people's needs and feelings as more important than your own. As you update your self-concept, you'll start appreciating the full spectrum of what you bring into the world. You'll also learn how to dismantle any distorted or outdated self-concepts you may hold. In the last chapter, you'll put together all you've learned. You'll review the secret terms of your implicit EIP relationship contract and see if you're ready to put your relationship on a more equal footing. Your ultimate recovery goal is to build a loyal, committed relationship to your own inner self and well-being. You'll also learn how to transform your EI relationship into the best it can be without sacrificing your integrity or blaming them. Finally, in the epilogue, you'll be given a new Bill of Rights for all adult children of emotionally immature parents. These rights express the book's main ideas and can be used as quick reminders of what you've learned. So when I was finishing the other book, I kept talking about the Bill of Rights. I think I was confusing it with this book, which is where she has it. My wish for you. I hope you come away from reading this book feeling understood and empowered to live your life from a new place of self-connection and self-understanding. Your parents gave you life and love, but only of the sort they knew. You can honor them for that, but cease to give them unwarranted power over your emotional well-being. Your mission now is for your own growth, to become an individual who is fully engaged with both yourself and other people. It would be my dream come true if you find this book useful in that quest. So, this is exciting stuff. Look forward to working with you guys in the next section when we cover the exercises within Chapter 1. Please do pick up your own copy, like and subscribe so you can help me out a little bit. If you'd like to have your first free consult with Finding Yourself as a life coach, it's myself and Penny Warner. Give us a call, contact us, and we'll be in touch. All right, take care, y'all. We'll talk soon. Bye.